Okay, so I'm also recording. And I've also got everyone's faces. Oh, maybe I can try and reduce that. Okay.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I will introduce this presentation and then you start.
Yeah, please do. Perfect. Can you ask everyone to mute their microphone as well?
Okay, so, of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that, let me see. Yeah, I think, yeah. Right, so I would like to welcome everybody to this session of the demonstrator. This week is presenting Alejandro Fernandez, Mariana, Pino, and Francis Baumont. This is a combined work from University of La Plata and University of Liverpool RUC Institute. So today we will see a basic support on how this GAPA farm tool is working. So you have 20-25 minutes, and then the idea is to open the session for discussions. So whenever you want, you can start.
All right, thank you very much, Jorge, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. So today we're going to be talking about basic support for farm event tracking and GAP compliance, and showcasing our tool that we built in La Plata University called GAPA Farm, which we use as a gateway for technology adoption. So initially, we're just going to introduce some of the research objectives and the background. So over the past 50 decades, we've been changing our culture around farming from being very resource-driven, expanding land and taking up more resources, to being more productivity-driven. That is, to use our resources more efficiently, to use less land, to raise the crop quality of less resources, through using new technology that's come to play and best practices. So that's allowing farms to have more exportable product, to protect the environment, to help the economy. And there's actually studies showing that this enables, this industry provides the second, well, the largest impact over any other sector on poverty reduction. So it's quite a unique opportunity to try and help economies converge into advanced economies. So we zoomed in on this technology barrier, which is basically, we feel, the reason why some farms are struggling to change their behavior around being resource driven to productivity driven. So the technology barrier, we feel, is really fundamental to try and break that down as to be as minimal as possible, to drive improvement and acceleration in the sector. Now, there's many IT solutions and software solutions that are out there, but many of them have suffered with low adoption rates. So we've been looking at the lessons learned from previous decision support system projects, and really identified compliance as an effective gateway to deliver decision support. Many farmers are willing to kind of struggle with adopting technology and work through the kinks in order to make the auditing compliance process more easy, in fact. So in the past, some farmers and arable advisors have just found systems just too bloody complicated, some would say. Some even said after losing patience, they felt inclined to just cheerfully throw the computer out the window because they felt like it was just weighing them down. But some of the key factors, they would be more inclined to use the software if they could trust the people who have developed the software. It had a good evidence base. The cost was minimal and affordable. And they're more likely to use it if there's a trial that allows them to use it for free. And the farm advisor compatibility, allowing knowledge exchange between people who are experts in the field or have knowledge that they don't already have, and that provides an incentive for them to try and experiment with the software. So we've really kind of zoomed in not only on the technology barrier, but also using compliance as a way to get farmers to adopt these technologies. So good agricultural practices are something that are either mandatory or strongly recommended in many, many countries. And in Argentina, where the project is based, compliance with good agricultural practices is now mandatory for fruit production starting in 2020. And vegetables will start also in 2021. So we thought this is a really good opportunity to kind of ride that wave. And in Europe, there's also a growing demand for GAP certification from supermarket chains to vegetable producers. And the consumers becoming more and more aware of the kind of some of the damaging practices of agriculture and monoculture and how we can start to combat it. And they're kind of scrutinizing the labels of their produce a little bit more rigorously. So yeah, we're using this compliance regulation as a bit of a nudge to get this kind of aging farming population to adopt technology through a really bespoke and minimalistic software solution. The software that we're developing is a minimum viable product to try and get them to adopt more sophisticated technology that's out there. So we're hoping that by improving their confidence, having created this tool through design thinking, that they will adopt more commercial software, make more informed data-based decision-making rather than intuition-based decision-making. We're hoping that they will then be able to seek new market opportunities, maybe export to different countries that have GAP certification requirements, maybe adopt sensors and start using high-tech greenhouses, and eventually maybe get to the point where they start incorporating automation into their farms. Now, there are some software out there, but we're trying to really help these farmers by making it as easy as possible by using their native language, in Argentina, Spanish, and providing a midway point, so a minimum set of features, giving them that trust. So as people in the local community helping to support them and developing the software from scratch, but also to provide them continuous support whilst they're piloting the software, and giving them free access, so it's open source. So the strategy we adopt to develop the software was design thinking. And we followed these 5 steps where it's kind of an iterative cycle where every time we finish a cycle, we go back to the beginning. So we followed this process that kind of Stanford Design School has laid out, where we emphasize what the problem is that they're experiencing, try and define exactly what the challenges are and the pain points that we're addressing. Ideate, so come up with kind of brainstorming, try and figure out what new solutions we can incorporate into this tool. We can prototype the tool for them, do it as quickly as possible, create mock-ups and get the feedback on so that we can test it in our pilot phase and then repeat the cycle. So this is the structure for our presentation. And we'll start off by talking a little bit about how we emphasize with the farmers to try and understand how we can best approach this problem and improve the adoption rate. So I'm just going to move the Zoom call to the other side because it's blocking my view. But we started with emphasizing this through surveys, interviews, and site visits. We surveyed 10 producers to understand technological capacity and receptiveness to the kind of project, to see whether it's something they'd be willing to experiment with. We did site visits to multiple farm owners to identify workflows, to really kind of understand the processes and the challenges as to why they haven't used software that's available or technology that's available on the market, and interviews to determine what the required records are for GAP compliance, and some desirable features that they might feel like is useful in the tool. So we have a few pictures here. We went to kind of Tomato Platanez Festival. We went to Basso de Campo, which is a kind of convention for selling seeds that has many horticultural growers. Silva Verde, and kind of visited a few people's greenhouses. So we identified that the key steps towards GAP compliance are applying only authorized products within, so pesticides and fertilizers and such for particular crop types. And farmers need to follow the recommendations and restrictions of use stated in the product's label and by SENASA, which is the kind of governing body in Argentina for agriculture. In particular, honor the withdrawal times. So that's to say that when an application of chemical products has been made, that they don't withdraw the product or harvest the product too soon after they've applied the pesticides, for example. They also have to record farm events for audit purposes, primarily kind of seeding, planting, any problems that they encounter, such as pest, disease, application of chemical products, harvesting, and selling. And I think also as new good agriculture practices come to light, to try and stay informed with updates rather than the farmers having to actively seek the most recent news that's coming out. So there's information available, yet still farmers still spray many pesticides and don't always necessarily follow compliance or good agriculture practices, even though they can find all this information online or through consultants and such. It's still a big problem today. And record keeping, to keep track of these practices, isn't that complicated. Yet farmers still use kind of handwritten note-taking tables and spreadsheets that can get quite messy and don't provide that kind of analysis or help provide database decisions kind of support. So when we were interviewing 10 of the farm owners from the different conventions and events that we went to from La Plata region, which is the farming belt of Argentina, all participants thought that technology would be helpful, although they weren't necessarily sure how. Most were underprepared for the regulatory changes. Although 70% didn't have a desktop, all could access the internet with their smartphone on their farm. And 50% weren't tracking any form of data or key performance metrics to try and improve their farm operations and make changes towards having more productivity-driven operations. And there are solutions that do exist at a really early stage. So there's a software called Artemis, there's FarmBright, and these have been developed for compliance tracking or good agricultural practices. But they kind of incorporate a little bit too much for people that don't have much exposure to technology. So there's lots of sensor integration, they're in a different language, and they're starting to create multi-language support, but there's a bit of a knowledge gap of local legislation. It's a little bit too general. In order to support these farmers, we want to really have a tailored solution to help them build the confidence where maybe they decide that actually they can make the leap into one of these more sophisticated software solutions. So the second part of the design thinking strategy was to really define the pain points through a series of workshops. So one of the things was creating a kind of user journey map and also developing this kind of pain points map to try and work through from the point of making a purchase of seeds, for example, always the point of delivery and making a sale. What was smooth for the farmers and what did they find more challenging? What were some of the pain points, so that we can try and help address those particular issues that they've encountered to make it more of a worthwhile endeavor for them to begin learning how to use technology and solutions that really solve the problems for them rather than just creating unnecessary features. So we really identified keeping track of pesticides and when they encounter problems and when they're harvesting, knowing when to harvest, for example, and keeping track of all the records is really the hardest thing. So we really felt like we were meeting a needed problem by developing this gap compliance software. The next session was to kind of begin brainstorming different features. So we met with Olivera and Mariana, spoke to some other farmers about different features that they might find helpful. We experimented with doing risk assessment workshops and developing a risk register. But many of the farmers said that one of the biggest problems for them were storms kind of breaking up their greenhouses, and that was the most imminent problem. And they didn't feel like risk assessment was a particularly useful feature of the tool that they would want and use very frequently. Baseline data comparison was helpful, but they weren't all tracking the data compared to other farms that might be helpful. They want it on a granular scale for each individual greenhouse, but they haven't got that data to share as of yet. I think they found comparing their actual yield versus the expected yield of their harvest to be quite interesting if we could provide estimations of what their harvest might be. Providing trending risk alerts and news, so risks that are appearing, such as a new pest outbreak or a new disease for their particular crop type, in the dashboard would be quite an interesting feature that they were all quite receptive to. Suggesting good practices based on the record keeping, which crops they can apply certain pesticides to or fertilizers to, rather than them having to check the label every single time. And keeping an expert database so that those compatible crops and chemical products are compatible, and providing premature harvest warning so that rather than having to change records retrospectively to adhere to compliance, they could have a warning beforehand alerting them that actually you shouldn't be applying this product before you make the decision to test it, put it into your system and realize, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So we went through this user journey map, basically going through what the software might look like, what the interactions would be, and kind of ran it through our pilot candidates, and came to an agreeable way for the software to work. And I'd like to pass you on to my colleague, Alejandro, who will take on from here to present a little bit about GAPFarm and bring us into the software solution and the prototype and talk us through it. So can I pass you to Alejandro?
Thanks, Francis.
Perfect.
I'll ask you to stay in control of the screen. I'll let you know
Sure.
when to move to the next slide. So, based in the National University of La Plata, this project understands that the goal of research is not only to produce new knowledge, but to add value and improve the well-being of people. So, with that in mind, and knowing that the La Plata area is important for the production of horticultural products, one of the things that we wanted to learn was, and that was one of the motivations for this project, was how are farmers in the area keeping records of what happens in their farms and what they are using these records, if at all, what are they using these records for? If one were to build or to foster the use of one of these farm record keeping tools, what is the minimum set of features that one is required to incorporate? So in order not to make the system too complex, but still to add value. Moreover, the goal of the project and of those computer scientists involved in the project is to make the product or the tool a vehicle for the dissemination of good agricultural practices. What we've seen, especially with the help of Francis, that interviewed not lots, but many farmers, was that even if those that keep records don't really use them to make decisions. So we want to see what is the support that such record-keeping tool has to provide in order to help farmers, to be useful for farmers, to make decisions based on data and to minimize the risk of non-compliance with the good agricultural practices. And as an overall, we want to double check the hypotheses or the results from previous research that told us that compliance or the need for compliance was a good opportunity for introducing decision-making systems. Francis, can you get me to the next slide? So with this in mind, we created this tool, this research prototype. It's not intended to be a full-fledged service, but it's a means to think about what such a full-fledged service should look like. It should help us as computer scientists, as expert agriculture agronomists, as farmers. It should help us together think about what is needed, and design as a simple tool should be a stepping stone, as Francis clearly stated. So from this simple tool, go to more complex and rich solutions. Next, please, Francis. So we envision a usage scenario where one deployment of this system, one installation of this system is shared by multiple farmers and the experts that advise them. So it's envisioned as a cloud service that farmers access via the web, that experts, both experts and farmers, can access and share data through, and that paying attention to aspects of privacy, ownership of data, thus good use of shared knowledge. And the system has two users, or two profiles of users: experts, agronomists, those that currently visit farms to advise farmers. These users will keep an up-to-date list of crops with the optimal yields of these crops, and especially and most importantly, with the chemical products that are allowed in the regulation of the area. And of course, we'll give advice targeted to the needs of the farmers they advise. And on the other side, farmers will keep a detailed record of events in the farm, will use the alerts of the system to monitor compliance, and will receive from the farmers, from the expert that advised them, up-to-date information about regulation changes in the area and alerts about pests or best practices. Next, Francis. So you'll see now in the next slide, we'll show you a video that takes you through the main features of the system. It will show you that there are control panels both for farmers and for experts that show the key points. And it will show you elements of collaboration between, not explicit, but implicit collaboration between farmers and between agronomists in the form of targeted news, alerts, data curation of the different experts that keep data about chemicals up to date. And the other thing that we can see that there was important is that at all points during, at any point during the pilots that we plan to conduct with the tool, farmers can fall back to a default strategy, a kind of Excel spreadsheet strategy that would let them take control of the data and process it in any way they want. So next slide, Francis. So yeah, just go ahead with the video, please, and put it in full screen.
GAPA Farm, basic support for farm event tracking and compliance with good agricultural practices. Welcome to GAPA Farm, a tool to explore how simplified event tracking in the farm with online collaboration with other farmers and experts can lead to better decisions. Its intention is to support farmers in adopting good agricultural practices. So let's go through the modelling of your farm. In GAPA Farm, plots are the unit of analysis. You can give them memorable identifiers and indicate the workable surface. You can also use the notes section if you need to provide some additional details about your entry. You can add substances to your inventory. Only substances registered by your local experts, though, based on the allowed active ingredients, are available for you to choose from. For planting and sowing, you can indicate the date and time of planting, plotting, and of the crop type. Optionally, indicate quantity, expected time of harvest, expected duration of the harvest, and expected yield. Optional information will actually turn into advice later on. Planting a new crop on the plot starts a new cycle. For recording adversities and issues, just indicate the date and time of the observation, the affected plots and crops, and the types and details of the observed adversities or issues. For application of phytosanitary products, only products that you've put in your inventory are available to choose from. Again, you can indicate the date and time of an application, plots and crops treated, product and quantity per plot. Optionally, you can indicate dose and the used machine or equipment. For harvesting, the process follows a similar format. Indicate the date and time of the harvest, the plot and the crop and the quantity, with an optional unit which you can customize to your preference. Monitor the current status of the farm by plot to get an overview of what was last planted, what was last observed in terms of issues or adversities, and which products were applied. If an applied product requires a waiting time before harvesting a crop, this is clearly indicated as well as on the main dashboard. Or monitor the current status of the farm by crop to remember what was planted and harvested, where on the farm, and how much of each crop had already been harvested during the current harvest cycle. Let's turn to the control panel to get the highlight of your farm, such as plots in a withdrawal period, where harvesting is not recommended in order to be compliant, plots soon to be harvested, so you can make sure that no unnecessary phytosanitary applications have been made, and targeted advice from experts related to your crops, issues and practices. In order to record sales so they can be traced back to your plots, just indicate time, customer name and the items included in the sale. For each item you indicate crop, plot of origin and quantity. Each item turns into a sale event and is reflected in your plot history. In GAPA-Farm, you have the option to export your data to open CVS standards, migrating your data to other tools to continue your analysis in your favorite spreadsheet or to make hard copies for certification purposes. If you are an expert advising a farm or a group of farmers, you ensure that the catalogue of authorised products and their corresponding withdrawal periods are up to date with the information provided by the product manufacturers and local regulations. As an expert, you get your own control panel to get an overview of the crop, adversities and the applications in the farms that you oversee. You can use that to offer targeted advice via the internal microblogging service. GAPA-Farm isn't a commercial tool. It's a research tool built at the National University of La Plata. It is available as open source, and to learn a little bit more, just check out our website. Okay, thanks. I'll just pass back to Alejandro. Can I just give a gentle reminder to mute your microphone, please? Because I think someone's tapping on their keyboard alongside and it's kind of distorting the audio. And also, the meeting is going to expire in 2 minutes, so if it does cancel out, could you just rejoin using the same link? And I'll pass you back to Alejandro.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Okay, so what we're doing in the next 2 months is conduct a pilot with farmers and experts in the area in the La Plata region. And there are some few questions that we want this pilot to answer. One special question relates to privacy and who would farmers trust the data about the farms. This is a key point because when we talk to farmers and explain to them that the system won't be installed in their farms, but on the cloud, this was one of their concerns. Then we want to learn about how usable this prototype is. What's the user experience? Is it effective to record? Is it efficient? Does it, at least it should compare to what they already currently use for the farms, that it's Excel
Alejandro, I'm sorry,
yeah,
can I ask people to turn off their microphones? I think that
yeah,
somebody...
Francis, maybe you can just
I
do
just
it from your control panel.
Yeah, I muted the person. No problem.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Apologies for that.
So, yeah. So I was saying, we want to see that this proposal that we're making is at least as good as using Excel sheets or the printed out forms that they currently use to record events in their farms. Now, once they use this system and have data, does this really makes introduces a change in the way they make decisions from intuition-based to data or evidence-based? And that's the fact that the system puts together information recorded by different farmers and expert. Does it really, is that enough to turn or to create?
Okay, I'm recording whenever you're ready.
Okay, so thanks everyone for coming back in. So as I was saying, we're asking farmers to record data, to keep up-to-date records of their data, and to let us, or to let the managers of this system use this information to produce value for everyone. And in some sense, the system will try to turn all this shared information into intelligent advice, what is called collective intelligence. So we want to evaluate with these pilots if the value that the system provides in exchange of sharing the data, it's enough for making farmers share the data. We want to find that trade-off. And if we can manage to keep the pilot running for a long time, at least the plan is to keep it for 2 months to learn about these questions. But farming, it's a long duration activity. So if we manage to run the pilot with a rich group of users for a long time, we want to, at the end, learn whether it had any impact on their confidence in using decision support systems that provide advice to help them make decisions. And the method that we plan for these pilots is basically surveys and non-structured or unstructured interviews. So we will stay together with these farmers to learn about their experience with the system. Francis, can you go to the next one? I think it's the last one. So just wrapping up, we are trying to use the change in local regulation in Argentina, but a change of practices all around Europe regarding good agricultural practices as an opportunity to get closer to farmers and introduce technologies. And from the very beginning, we realized that any viable solution has to include all stakeholders, farmers, experts, researchers, IT people from the very beginning. So that's why we chose this design thinking approach from the very beginning. We're now into this pilot phase, as I told you, And next slide, please, Francis. Although we've already collected some opinions from farmers regarding this system. In fact, last week we conducted a training session regarding the system. It was in Spanish for about 40 between experts, farmers, and researchers in the area in Argentina. We trained them, we showed them the system, we tried to train them in use the system. We invited them to take part of the pilot, and we asked them what they thought about the system. And this is what we are also doing right now with you. If you're so kind, we would like to ask you to go to this URL, bit.ly/gaf-en. Just enter that last part in your browser, and you will be directed to a survey. And in a few days, or as soon as we have results from this survey, we will share it with you. That somehow sums up what we wanted to tell you about this project, our research and our plans. Now, if you're so kind, we would like to hear your questions. Oh, Francis, would you like to add something, or Mariana?
No, I think you did a really good job, and thank you everyone for listening, and we're happy to take any questions. And I'll also post the link into the group chat if you want to leave any feedback.
Yes, in the Zoom chat, right?
Right. I'm trying to see
Hello,
how to do that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Really cool stuff. Looking forward to know more about this tool, and hopefully we can integrate with other stuff we are going on. In my side, this is Federico Gallagher. My question is, do you envision that in the farm, you will create kind of a new role that will be the one responsible for keeping up with all the steps, with the tool? It means this, although it's easy to use, for me at least, I can imagine farmers that, as you said, were kind of away from the technology and probably use their phones or computers for Facebook or social media. But do you think that, it could be something like that you need someone that will be in charge of keeping up the information updated, or do you think that everyone can be used to this kind of new technology? Thank you.
So I did think about this in terms of having a centralized kind of decision-making process. At the moment, many of these farms have maybe one, maybe two maximum computers on their farm, and there'll probably be one or two people using those computers. I think the idea is to have something that in the long run could be used on your smartphone, that you could update whilst you're actually on the farm doing the work and making those decisions as close to real time as possible. But I feel like the more sophisticated solutions are able to do that already. And I don't think that's something that we should program. We're simply trying to build the confidence of farmers to see the appeal of such solutions and have something that's more minimalistic. But I think that is a really important question, and is something that as the farm manager begins to build confidence, they can start to train other people on the farm to use such a software, is my response. Do you have anything else to add, Alejandro?
Yeah, so thanks, Fede, for your question. In fact, what we've seen is that there's at least two reasons why people is now keeping records in their farms. And one of them is those farms that are trying to certificate GAP compliance, especially those that, for example, sell their products to supermarket chains that require certification. And the motivations for these farms to keep records is because when they're audited, they need to show their records. And in these cases, is the driving force is the farm owner or the farm administrator. And what we've seen in these farms is that even though the records are kept in paper by those that observe, that walk around the farm, the final recording of this data into Excel sheets is done by the farmer, the main farmer, one of the owners. Now, the other scenario is more, I don't know, data-oriented farmers, those farmers that want to make decisions based on evidence. And for these farmers, keeping real up-to-date records, it's so important that sometimes they walk around the farm trying to keep records updated. And sometimes they also ask those working for them, for example, agronomists or the kind of chief workers, to keep Excel sheets. So wrapping up, I think that once people start keeping records and using systems to keep these records, not only new roles, maybe not new roles, but new processes will come up, and maybe tools such as mobile versions of the tool will appear, or people that are not used to keeping records will be trained, required to do so. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think that we will learn about it as soon as we will have a better answer when we finish the pilot, I guess.
Can I answer? I like very much how the informatic people can explain all, but it's very good. Federico, record keeping is not easy. It's not an issue that we do in the farms, but we know that we have to do. And maybe it's not so easy to put in this GAPA farm program all the data, but some of them we can. And all the people, all the participants the other day in the demo were very interested in use it. And I think that we can improve it. Well, it's a good tool to record keeping, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I would like to, because my comment was not negative at all. I mean, I was thinking that even this tool will show the need, or I would say the opportunity to have a new role in the farm, even in small farms.
Yes.
We have a new job for someone that could be perhaps someone working there that is not aware of technology, got a little bit more time, and specialized that role. So it's not a bad thing, it's an opportunity. Thank you.
No, of course. I want to add something. I think it's not a tool for very small farmers. It's a tool for medium or bigger farmers. And the role of record keeping is not maybe in one person. For example, I have a medium farm, and we are 3 or 4 record keeping different data, and maybe in another farm, maybe Serviverde, they are 1, they are 2, or they have to invent someone, create a person to record keeping. This was your question, Federico.
Thanks, Mariana. We should have started by asking you to answer this question.
But
Thanks,
you can
Fede,
answer all.
Thanks, Fede, for your question.
She actually sent me a message in private saying, "Ask this so I can. This guy let me speak."
Ah,
Just kidding.
yeah, genius. Any more questions? I mean, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to work with Mariana and the guys from Serviverde. We learn a lot, especially about not assuming things our way before talking to them. So, yeah.
Oh, Diego
George, what do you
Torres
think
raised his
about
hand
it?
as well.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, we've got a new
Good
question.
morning for me.
Hello.
How are you? Fine. Nice to see you, all of you. My question is regarding this opportunity for tracking this information. Have you thought in including some models or other ways to present to the farmers intermediate results? Just for example, if you track a specific kind of vegetable that you are going to produce, just with that information, you will receive some feedback aggregated maybe of regional information, preserving the identity. I don't know, in this region, using these vegetables, you are going to have this tendency in this trend in the production, or taking account all of these advices or something like that. I mean, something that the farmer or the producer don't have to wait at the end of the whole cycle of production, and maybe that could be a way to motivate the use of the application, and in really small steps you are receiving more feedback by this information aggregation that could be obtaining from several sources, or maybe even from the same the same application, but using information from other regions. I don't know if I was clear.
Francis, Mariana, would you like to say something?
I think that for the moment is not, we were not thinking about it. But maybe in advices and these things, Alejandro?
Oh, no, I can definitely say a point or two, I think, as well. So I think we did think about this in regards to baseline data comparison, so that farms could compare themselves to other farms. Again, we felt like they weren't tracking enough of their own data, and it was hard to force them to collect it during some of the testing phase. That would make that quite tricky. We decided that as people report issues or risks that occurred, so when they're talking about certain incidents such as a storm or a certain pest outbreak, if it was a common problem occurring across the region, then that would come up on the dashboard as a trending risk or alert. With regards to providing intermediate advice, I think that would require a bit more data collection over several crop cycles. And as Alejandro quite clearly stated, farming is obviously a bit of a slow process. I think that'd be a nice feature to add, but it does require some patience and time to kind of see what features work and how we could begin to incorporate that along the data that we track.
Yeah, I would like to add, thanks Diego for your question. One thing that we realize by trying to work this, I mean, we're using the term design thinking. I hope people that work in design thinking don't think we are taking it not serious enough. But I mean, we understand this approach as not doing anything that we're not sure adds value and is worth the effort. And we had lots of ideas of features that the system could have, advice, alerts, but it was not clear that they should be there from the very beginning. So we will introduce them as soon as farmers ask for them. So far, they didn't ask for this type of features. Not sure if that answers, Diego.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
I have a question too, Jorge.
Okay, go.
Yeah,
You first.
No, go you. No, you go.
You first, please. You first. Come on.
Okay. Just a question. I heard before, Mariana, you said that the tool was for medium and big farmers. Okay. But are you working on a training course or something to develop in the company? Because for the companies, we need to make the easiest way to involve in this kind of tools. And maybe with a training course, I don't know if you are working on it, maybe for sure, yes. But if not, it's a value for the companies especially. Or a manual, or I don't know, a training course online or something, or going to the farmers to explain them, I don't know. Are you working on that?
Are you speaking about this, to use this tool, Juanjo?
Yeah, yeah.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
I think, of course, we need an explication, but not a training course for this.
No, or a manual or something.
I
know, because in Spain it's absolutely necessary to vehiculize the companies, you know, to this kind of tools, and because it's new for them, and maybe they need some, I don't know, work along. I don't know how can I say.
So one just from outside, it's not the tool that that it's challenging, is the process of record keeping and being GAP compliant. That's what requires training. So for farms that don't keep any records, that don't care about being compliant with the good agricultural practices, training is what they do. Is what Mariana does in the university. Is what Serviver requests from.
I understand now. Okay.
But using the tool, once you have the practices, of course, it's as complex as filling forms. As it requires some level of training, but it's not the most. We believe it's not the most complicated part. We will learn about it in the pilot. I mean, we're planning to use this for the first time with farmers in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah,
and up to now it was only Mariana and Serviverde. Sorry, Francis.
And we also want to be able to prove that this is an easier way to do it than doing paper forms or Excel spreadsheets. Because if it doesn't save time, it's not more effective, it's not more efficient, then there's almost no point of using this tool in the first place.
Oh, perfect. Okay, you will tell me after the pilot.
Yes.
Thank you for your question.
Okay.
And Jorge?
Okay, thank you for everything. For me, it's okay.
Great.
Yeah, I have a question for Mariana. Mariana, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Okay. I'm listening to you.
Very good. Now, basically, I want to know, Mariana, because of course, as you said, we from the technology side, from the system point of view, we kind of we try to think that we know the solutions to almost everything, right? But I want to know, what was your opinion based on your experience once we approach you for the first time and telling you these stories about system, decision support system and solutions. So what was your main worry about this at the very beginning, and what are your worries about this now? I mean, do you think that this is useful, was not useful, is realistic? From your point of view, what is your opinion about this work done?
Alejandro, what is this?
Very nice question. Very nice question. Let me also add a bit to the question. Is how did, as a farmer and as an expert from another domain, how was what did you think about computer scientists and our approach at the beginning of the project? And what do you think about us now? Did we learn anything? Did we get any closer to you? Do we need to keep trying?
Okay, thank you, Mariana. So now we lead the session right now. No, sorry, joking.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Speak English is very difficult for me, so I'm happy. Now, particular in this program, well, we work together with the LIFIA group in other aspects. It was very interesting because we can clear a lot the ideas about horticulture chain. So it was very interesting, particularly in this program. It was very, very good. Really, I was, I record I record a lot of data in Excel, in a lot of different documents. And we work a lot with Alejandro to improve to look for the results that I need, especially. I need, because I was the training farmer. But well, it was very interesting to try to adopt the technology. I don't know if it's okay, the answer.
Is it easier to track now than it was before?
Yes, okay. It is.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah, Horacio, go ahead.
Hi, Horacio.
Hello, Horacio from Chile here. Very nice the presentation. I love the tool. I think this is simple, very friendly, and I would like to move to or integrate with blockchain. It's very, very interesting because the traceability of the product there. So we will talk about that after this meeting during the rest of the project. But my question is, do you think that there is any restriction to move this tool, for example, to Chile, that is a Spanish country, speak Spanish, and the process could be the same? Have you thought about that, or even thinking in Europe, in Spain initially because the language, or any other country in England, in Liverpool. So any question, sorry, any comment about this to migrate this another location? Thank you.
I think it would be very interesting, but we have a very big database with the approved chemicals, products, phytosanitaries or pesticides. So this we have to check in each country. For example, Juanjo, I don't know if you are there. Persimmon.
I am here. Persimmon, yeah.
Each crop has a restricted group of pesticides approved by each country. We have to adapt this in each country. But Alejandro, what do you think about?
That's the challenge, I think. It's not a technical problem. It's
agronomical.
It's an organizational problem. The key is who could be responsible of hosting this and creating the communities around the system to keep the data up to date. It's not a technical issue. In fact, it's a nice challenge.
I understand. And continue with the same idea. So the idea is to put the software in a cloud, to not every client or every farmer to have a standalone solution in the server.
Yeah, right. So this is a research prototype. It's open source. Anyone with the skills can download it, and it can be installed on a single machine. For our pilots, because of the questions we want to answer, for our pilots, we plan to run it in agreement with the participants, possibly in one of the servers in our research center, that's something that we will agree and discuss with those that participate in the pilot. Now, for the future, it can be installed on a single machine, or it can be installed in a cloud shared by a group of farmers, a cooperative. Maybe it could be re-implemented with better technology and installed in a province, in a country. This is a research prototype, so we're looking for what happens afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much.
So the session is going to close again in 6 minutes. So anyone wants to wrap up? Mariana, Francis. Of course, if we have any more questions, we can just you can just email us, and we'll create a new session and just discuss with any of you that is interested. So Mariana,
what I will recommend, based on Horacio's comment, I will recommend that you may try also to attend Elizabeth Kerr's presentation with his tool, which is it's not the same, but it's pretty similar, because probably some of the data that you require in order to move this tool to Chile, for instance, the tool from Elizabeth may already have it, I think. So it will be really worthwhile that you try to interact with Elizabeth Kerr, as she's the leader of this part of the project in Chile. For the tool is called Plan Predial. So you may try to contact her and try to see how the tool works. The only issue with that tool is that the tool is in Spanish. So, but has a very solid and consistent database that you can see the structure, and eventually you may try to, an interface can link to that, and eventually you may try using it for other countries and so on.
In fact, they may have the same challenge because
Probably.
They have specific data for Chile, but the structure of the system, I remember we had this discussion already with Elizabeth. I'm not sure if she's there.
She was. She is here.
Yeah, maybe she wants to comment something, or maybe we can discuss it after her presentation.
Maybe you only have 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So, no, literally you have 5 minutes. I mean, I'm not saying.
Shall we wrap up, Francis and Mariana?
Yeah.
Shall we close it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think so. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. That's a very
Thank
great
you.
work.
Goodbye.
All right, see you later, everyone. Good to see everyone, and I'll see you in
you.
following presentations.
Okay,
Ciao.
bye-bye. Hasta luego, bye-bye.